What if I told you there's a smartphone right now that you can buy that rewrites all the rules when it comes to what you can expect from top level photography and effectively makes most of your cameras that you've got at home feel obsolete? This is the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. Here you get a 1-inch sensor, Leica optics, and insane performance. So this isn't just changing the game, it's completely rewriting them. Let's show you why. The 17 Ultra is all about its cameras, so why not start there? Because that main lens is a 50 megapixel 23mm f1.7 and delivers natural crispness that doesn't have an artificial look or feel to them, and there's absolutely no noise here at all. The Leica Authentic profile offers a nice, clean and almost sophisticated look, and doesn't overly saturate images either. Dynamic range is very nice as well, and switching between 12.5 megapixel and 50 megapixel modes does mean you get more detail in the latter, but shooting in 12.5 still is the best way to go just for file sizes. At 2x, there's still no loss of any quality here, and images still maintain that sharpness, detail and natural look to them. Again, no over processing. At nighttime, the consistency stays the same, and it really shines through, as here you get no aggressive softening or over sharpening that you do find in some nighttime images from other smartphones, and the images produced here do a really good job of handling textures and exposures, and dynamic range again is well balanced. The day to night transition on this phone drops off 0 in terms of its quality. The telephoto lens is the highlight though. 200 megapixels, 75 to 100 millimeters, that's f2.4 to 3.0, which is a really short focal length. Effectively, it's 3.2x to 4.3x, but the sensor is a continuous zoom sensor, and that means images out this look superb with excellent dynamic range and superb detail. Color reproduction remains the same and looks natural and aligns really nicely with an almost cinematic look and feel. At 4.3x, the images retain that same level of quality as a 3.2, so you don't get any drop off here, and again there is no noise and still maintains that natural look without being flat, and still is quite nicely vibrant. The rest of the focal range retains a lot of the detail, but the further you move up the zoom range, the greater the AI processing kicks in, which does mean you do get images that look somewhat unnatural. Anything above, I would say 30x zoom on your camera system will probably dictate that. The ultrawide is a 14mm 50 megapixel f2.2. Again, the images are sharp and well defined, and again, like the telephoto and main lens, retain the excellent color reproduction and dynamic range. The sensor here is actually the Samsung JN5, which does way outperform what we normally expect out of this lens where we have done previous reviews. Video output on here is again really good, 8K being the top output here, but isn't the one that we've seen as being the best, to be fair. The use of all three video modes, so ultra-wide, telephoto and the main lens, maintain a really nice balance with regards to colors and dynamic range, and the downside here only is when you zoom into areas you do see a drop off in detail. Also on the camera front and level of options, you do get absolutely wild. In fact, we want to drop in a couple of black and white and cinematic filters, Leica enabled ones, on here to give you an idea of what they look like. As insane as the camera specs are on this phone, the other components of this phone are also absolutely wild. For example, you get a Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, a base storage of 512 gigabytes on UFS 4.1 and 16 gigabytes of LTPO RAM as well, which is insane. All that combined means that when you do anything on this phone, it is super quick, including things like opening and closing apps are rapid, fast, and transitions between those apps, things like multiple windows or swiping to get from one app to the other, are also very quick. Then the processor, if you run this quickly through Antutu's benchmark, you get a score of over 3.7 million, which is indicative of the top tier bleeding edge flagship processors that this phone has. But it all makes the most sense is when you want to push this just a little bit more than your day-to-day use and you game on this phone, and combine that with the top and bottom firing stereo speakers, which are crisp, loud and clear, you get a super immersive experience.
Enemy contact!
Hardpoint is ours. Hostiles have captured the hardpoint.
Tango down!
Hardpoint contested. Hardpoint identified. Tango eliminated.
Contact with enemy! Enemy down!
On the battery front, it's a 6,000 mAh silicon carbon battery, 90 watts of wired charging, 50 watts of wireless charging, just ridiculous spec, absolutely insane. And it's a legit multi-day battery because when we run it through Antutu's benchmark, it only used 6% of its battery. In fact, when we set up this phone, took all the photos that you've seen throughout this video, transferred all our data over, gamed on it, watched content on it, we still pushed this into a second day pretty easily. So this is a legit multi-day battery. However, I would say it doesn't have the same sized milliamp hour battery as something like an X9 Pro or other Chinese brand phones who are hitting 7 to 9 to 10,000 milliamp hour batteries. The design profile of the 17 Ultra is as you'd expect, flat rails on the side, and then the front of course is flat. And then on the rear, you get a pretty large camera housing, and the whole thing weighs around about 220 grams, and no way is that a lightweight. One thing I do think that would have been a nice benefit was to have something like a shutter button on this phone that allowed you to capture images like photos and videos whilst you're in sort of landscape mode to make it feel a lot like a camera, which of course it does via the photography kit, but not on this phone. Finally, up front, you get an equally stunning, as everything else has been, 6.9-inch AMOLED display with 120 Hz and 3500 nits of peak brightness, and it is protected by Xiaomi's latest Shield 3.0 and a 92% screen to body ratio. So what that means is you get razor thin borders and a display that performs really well. And you also get here the latest RGB or hyper RGB panel, which means greater detail and color reproduction in and outdoor use. So non-issues here. And the overall experience, as you'd expect from a flagship phone, whatever you're doing, from watching content through to browsing the web to reading, is the top of what you can get. And also this phone is an LTPO panel, so that will mean it will dip down to 1 Hz as well, and it will also reduce its brightness down to 1 nit in darker areas as well. No phone is perfect, and there are some small pitfalls with this phone. The first one being its battery. 6,000 mAh is huge, but the same spec model in China actually gets you 6,800 mAh, which is quite a significant drop-off. And then there's the other component. The phone, of course, houses that massive lens at the back, so weight distribution is very much top heavy, which does mean at times if you want to use it single-handedly, you kind of have to almost use 2 hands rather than 1. Then there's the price. This phone, like most Ultra phones, costs around about £1,299 in the UK, but funny enough, there's actually an addition above this, which has some extra Leica tweaks to it, including a logo on the rear, which is called the Leica Lights phone, and that costs $1,699. But what I would say, the overall experience of this phone and those very small pitfalls don't take away from a flagship phone in 2026. That's going to be nigh on impossible to beat in terms of its overall package, because here you get something that does everything you'd ever want to do. We haven't even touched on the HyperOS 3.0 running on Android 16, which has every customization option you could think of and a whole host of AI features. So the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is going to be the benchmark for flagship Ultra phones in 2026. We want you to let us know what you think of the 17 Ultra in the comment section below. And if you found this video helpful, drop us a like, comment, and please consider subscribing. It really supports the channel. Until the next one, as always, we out.